Hey, this is Joe Martin, and welcome to the Relentless Positivity Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I want to tell you a story about how Bryan Stevenson became who he is today. So let me back that up. I was listening to the Power Mixtape with Common. Excellent. You got to check that out. I'll link that in the show notes. And he was interviewing Bryan Stevenson. You've probably heard of the movie Just Mercy. So he's the one that wrote the book, which is awesome, by the way. I'm currently reading that. The movie is really good, too. He's also the founder of Equal Justice Initiative. And he told a story about why he decided to start working with death row patients. So that's kind of what he's known for. But his second year in college, he was not really committed to being a lawyer yet. He was required to do a month of human rights work, and that was the first time he had met someone on death row. He walked in feeling totally unprepared and wondering how in the world he could help this man, considering the limited amount of knowledge he had at the time. And he even apologized to the guy. He said, "Hey, I'm sorry, I'm not a real, unquote, quote, unquote, real lawyer." The man on death row asked him how his case was going, and Stevenson told him it was progressing and they wouldn't have a date within the next year. And shockingly, this guy started crying. And he said the man on death row had kept his wife and children from visiting because he was afraid they would show up and he would have an execution date. Easy for me to say. So they began to talk, and they found they had a ton of stuff in common, and even they were the exact same age. They talked about how easily their fates could have been switched. They talked for so long, they actually got in trouble with the guards. And the guards started treating the man roughly. The guy on death row, they're pushing him around, shoving him, and throwing him against the wall. When all of a sudden the prisoner stopped and started singing a hymn that Bryan Stevenson hadn't heard in years. The words said, "Lord, lift me up and let me stand. By faith on heaven's table land. A higher plane than I have found. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground." And Bryan Stevenson realized at that moment that he wanted to help people on death row find higher ground. So when he got back to Harvard Law School, you couldn't keep him out of the library. He had to know everything there was out there about the law. And his quote was, "It's not because I'm hardworking or smarter. It's because I stood close enough to a condemned man and heard him sing about higher ground." So I would encourage you to go listen to it in his words, because he is so passionate about it, so eloquent. That's why I was going to link that in the show notes to that podcast. And so I had two big takeaways from this, and I also have some homework for you at the end. So number one, find your why. So Bryan Stevenson found his why, and it drove everything he did going forward. So Simon Sinek, you've probably heard of him. He's famous for helping people find their why, and he uses the golden circles. So if you picture three circles, a big one, a medium, and a small one, the big outside circle, that is your what. That is your product or service or kind of what you do in the world. And this is where most people are, what they're driven by. So for me, it's fitness. That's my what. The medium circle, kind of in the inside, is the how. This is the how circle. What makes you different? What separates you from others? Like for me, I do a women's outdoor boot camp, and we do all shapes, size, and abilities, fitness levels, all that good stuff. But your smallest circle is your why. And that is your purpose, your cause, your belief. That is why you exist. And it doesn't have to be about a job or a career or anything like that. This is what gets you up in the morning raring to go. My why is that I was overweight. I was out of shape. I wasn't happy with who I was or how I looked. And then I lost 50 pounds. I felt amazing and decided I was going to spend the rest of my life helping people go from where I was then to where I am now, so they could show up better for themselves, for their family, for their careers, and live their best life. You know, that's what gets me out of bed at 4 a.m. every morning, even when I don't feel like it, which is most mornings. But anyway, somewhere out there, but I tell myself, somewhere out there is a person that needs my help. It is my job to provide that. So I get myself up and get rolling, and I'm good. Plus, there's coffee. So there's that. So that's my why. Find your why. That's the first takeaway. The second one, we are more alike than we are different. So if you ever heard of Daryl Davis, he's an amazing guy. He was an accomplished blues musician, but what he's most famous for is befriending KKK members and other hate groups. And what he does is he gets them to denounce those people. So he's done that for over 200 people. They turn in their robes, their KKK robes and all that. He's got a huge collection of them. And it all started with him saying, "How can you hate me when you don't even know me?" So that kind of set him on this journey of going out and meeting these people. So he has an awesome quote that says, "If you spend 5 minutes with your worst enemy, it doesn't even have to be about race. It could be anything. You will find out that you both have something in common. As you build those commonalities, you're forming a relationship. And as you build that relationship, you're forming a friendship." So when is the last time that you had an open and honest conversation with someone who doesn't look like you, or who is different politically, or is a different religion? None of this is conversations on Facebook. That does not count, because we have a huge problem in the world right now. People don't talk to each other. Too many inflammatory, one-sided conversations that nobody's looking to seek common ground. They're just spouting their opinion off. So Dr. Stephen Covey would always said, seek first to understand. So first you got to understand, unfortunately, most people do not, Dr. Covey said, most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. So that's a big thing right now. People are just waiting for them to jump in. They don't care what you're saying. So your homework is to start thinking about how you can start understanding people that aren't like you. The simplest way, in my opinion, is sit down and break bread with somebody. But with COVID, that's probably not going to happen. So having a meal with someone may not be an option right now. So I would start with something you already have in common, whether it's sports, music, maybe you have a common goal or mission in mind. So in the military, people of all backgrounds, races, colors, creeds, all come together because they have a common mission. You see that in sports, people that combine over music or something like that. Try to understand who they are, what they're about, what they believe, all that good stuff. Because when you find and you learn people's story and find out what they're about, most of the times it turns out you are more alike than you are different. Or it turns out they're a terrible person, and now you know for sure, right? So you got that going for you. So go out there, find out, make the world a better place. Keep doing that. So I got some good news for you this week. The good news this week is a personal one. So two of my former boot campers, Marie and Mary, moved out to Texas different times over the years. And they just were out there establishing new lives and all that good stuff. And then they've had the recent ice storms and power outages out there. And Mary lost power, had no running water. So she's just kind of posting updates on Facebook. And then we get the news that Marie comes to the rescue. They don't live in the same city. Marie drove over there, brought a ton of water over there, and she helped her so she can have running water, flush the toilet. Because flushing the toilet, turns out, that's a big deal, right? So shout out to Marie. Marie has always served others through her military service, working for the government, or just being an overall awesome person. Plus, she is involved in one of my favorite running stories of all time. So she was running a 5K one time. She made a wrong turn. And she was such a beast. She just went ahead and did the half marathon while she was at it. So instead of turning around, she's all full speed ahead. Thank you for your service, Marie. You were awesome. Keep doing great things. And your dad joke of the day. So my doctor told me that I'm going deaf. The news was hard for me to hear. Thank you so much for tuning in. You guys are awesome. Have a great day.